You to have yours. I've got my instructions. Looking to sell here today. Reasonable reserve price, I might add, in a bid to get the job done here today. But in order to do that, I need your bid.
670.
At 670, a fair start now at 670,000. At 670,000, fairly been offered now at 670 the bid. At 670,000 the bid. At 670,000, bids here, competitions here, the opportunity with everybody else at 670 now. At 670,000, first call at 670,000, are we done? At 670,000, second call at 670,000, done, finished. Third, final call.
675.
At 70, I was hoping for 20, but I'll take 10, Harry, if they say 80. At 670, the bid's there. At 670, the bid. At 670,000, got to show straight through they want to buy it. 80 and welcome them in at 680,000. At 680,000, the bid's there. 90 if you like, 700's better. At 680,000. At 680, the bid. Fairly been offered now at 680. At $680,000 the bid. Bid there against yours, 90 now, 690. At 690 now. At 690,000, 700 beckons now at 690 the bid. At 690 the bid now, got to be 700 in the rise. At 690,000. Once at 700,000, even money that at 7. At 700,000. At 700,000 and the bid's there. At 700 the bid. At 700,000, even money. Don't let it scare you off. It's just a round number. At 700,000, what do you say? At 700, taking 10 in the rise. At 700 the bid. First call at 700,000. Are we done? Second call at 700,000. Done. Finished. At 705, why not? 705,000. And the same courtesy to your buyer, Harry, if they like. But do let them know, Harry, that we are on the market and selling. The bids here, the keys are here. If there's no further bids, we will sell over here. So at 705,000, we do sell. If you've come to buy, you must bid me now if ever hold your peace, because there's no second chances here today. I'm not going inside to receive instructions. There's no halftime break. We sell here today at $705,000 the bid. The bid's here. The keys are here. If there's no further bidding, they'll remain with you at 705. First call at 705,000. Done. Second call at 705. Done and finished. Third. At 706, oh, welcome, sir. 10 over here, though. I'm going to go with the 10. I heard a higher number. At 710,000. At 710,000, is that correct, Harry? At 710? At 710,000, 11. Oh, Slurpee time, sir. 711. I love bids at 711. At 711,000. At 711,000, the bid's there at 711. At 711,000, fairly been offered now at 711, and the bid's there, back against your buyer, Harry. At 711,000, let them know we do sell. The keys are here in the crowd. At 712 now, at 712, got them down to $1,000 bids, sir. At 713,000 now, at 713 the bid. At 713,000, tell them to give me a big bid, Harry, sir. We're done over here. At 713, bid there, keys there, definitely done. 18, good bid. At 718 and 20. At 720,000. At 720,000, bid there now. 720 the bid. At 720,000, just to confirm we are done here. Thank you very much for your bidding here today. At 720,000, bids here, keys are here. We're selling at 20. First call at 720,000, done. Second call, 720 the bid, done and finished. Third, final call, $720,000 at 22 now, at 722. At 722,000. At 1, sir, at 723. At 723,000 now, at 723 the bid. At 723,000, bid there, back against your buyer. They tell me they're out over here at 723. Let your buyer know there's only one more buyer to beat in the crowd at 723. At 723 the bid. For the first call at 723 at 25. At 725 now. At 726, at 726, straight back in at 726. At 726,000. How about 30, Harry? At 726,000, 728 now, 30 beckons now, 728. At 728 and 9. At 729, it was at 30. Can I say 30? Surely. 729, 30. At 730. At 730 now. At 730,000, fairly been offered now. At 730, put you in good stead there. At 730,000, first call at 730. At 700, at 31 now. At 731 and 2 at 730, 2 on top. At 732. I tried. At 732. At 732,000, fairly been offered now at 732 the bid. Bid's there, keys are there. Opportunity with your buyer. We're out here at 732. At 732,000, first call at 732, done. Second call At 3-3 now, 733. At 733, 35, sir, 34. At 734. At 734,000, back there now, 734. At 734,000, fairly been offered. At 734 the bid. Is that how they want to proceed? Are you sure? They want to proceed with strength. They've got to bid me at least one. At 734, tell them 35. At 734,000. At 5 now, at 735. At 736. At 736,000. At 736,000, fairly been offered now at 736. At 736, keep the strength in the bid if they want to buy. At 736, they should be considering a higher bid, Harry, not a lower one. At 736,000, the bid's there. What do they say? At 736, the bid. Once at 736,000, done. At 8 now, and that's better at 738. 40, sir. At 738, can I say 40 now? 40. At 40. At 740,000. At 740, the bid now. 740,000 bids there, keys are there. We sell here today. At 740, the bid. Once. At 41 now, at 742, at 742, at 742,000, fairly been offered now at 742 the bid, at 742,000, pressure back on the phone at 3 now, at 43, at 740, at 744 now, at 744, at 744,000, bid there, keys there, we sell, 744, at 748 now, 748, at 748,000 and 50, a great bid at 50, at 7.5, at 750,000, at 750,000, put you back in good stead there, sir, 750, ahead of the game, keys in your pocket for now, at 750,000, bid there, keys are there, once at 750, done. Twice at 750, at 51 now, wasn't quite enough. At 2 now, at 752. At 752,000, at 752 the bid now. At 752 we sell. At 752 there's no further bidding, I'll sell there at that, at 752. At $752,000 the bid for the first time of asking. At 53 now, at 753. At 755, at 755 the bid. At 755,000. At 755,000 the pressure straight back on the phone at 55. At 755,000 fairly been offered. If you guys change your mind at any point, I'm not sold yet, you can come right back in. All right? At 755, I just thought I'd check. At 755 now, and the bid's there. At 755,000 now, fairly been offered. First call at 58, 60, sir. At 758, make it 60 in the rise. At 60, got 760. At $760,000 now, at 760 the bid. At 760, again the quick retort at 760. At 61, at 761,000, not quite going away. 2 at 762. At 762,000. At 762,000, fairly been offered back there at 762 now. At 763 now, 763. At 765, at 765 the bid. At 765,000, fairly been offered now at 765. Bid there, keys there, we sell. Once at 765, are we done?
768.
At 768, 70 surely, sir. Can I say 70 now? At 768,000. At 768, 770. At 768, bid there. At 70 now, at 770 the bid, at 770,000, fairly been offered now, at 770,000 bids there, keys there, we sell. At 1, at 771, at 771,000, at 771,000, it's not a great distance, but I'm certainly getting my steps in at 771. At 771,000, bid there, back against you, at 771, at 771,000 once. At 2 at 772, at 772, at 772,000. How about at 3 now at 773? So how about we try lucky sevens? 75. I'll ask your buyer, Harry, how about we try lucky sevens at 775 the bid? Take me to 777 at 775. At 775,000, bid there, keys there, 7 3/4. At 775, at 777s now. At 777s, at 777,000. At 777,000, lucky sevens. At 78, not quite lucky. They might have to try the pokies later. At 778, at 778,000. At 778,000, bid there, back against your buyer, Harry. Make it 80 in the rise. At 778, at 778,000, fairly been offered at 778 the bid. First call at 778 at 9 now, 779. At 779 and 80 got 780. At 780,000. At 780,000 fairly been offered now, 780 the bid there, keys there. We're selling at 780 if there's no better bid. At 780,000 first call at 780 all done. Second call at 780, done and finished. 81 now at 781. At 781,000, 82 now, 782. At 782. At 782,000 now, bid back there at 782. Brick by brick we've been going. Might take a big bid to break the gridlock here today. At 782,000, bid there, keys there. 83 now. At 783, 85. At 785 now, 785. At 785,000, back with you, sir, at 85. At 785, the bid. At 785,000, has he done enough? At 785, once, twice. 788. 88 now, 788, 90. At 788 now, 788,000. At 788,000, bids there, keys there, 788. At 90 now, at 790. At 790,000, back on top at 90. At 790,000, do we dare consider 800 as a power move? At 790,000 and the bid's there. At 790 the bid. First call at 790,000. Done. Twice. At 91. So it might be a race to 800. It might be the mental barrier of the competition. If it is, you want to get there first at 791,000. How about let's be bold? We've worked so hard together to get yourself in this position. Can we say 800? Big, bold bid. Big bids buy property.
95.
At 95, at 795. At 795,000. I'll ask the same of your buyer at 98. Now I'm going to come straight back to you and ask for 800 again. At 798. At 798. No point going 99. Let's not do things in half measures. At 798,000. At 800,000, even money now at 8. At 800 the bid. At 800,000 the bid's there, the keys are there. Testing time for your buyer now. At 800,000, it's only a round number though. At 800,000 now, fairly been offered at 800 the bid. First call at 800,000. Are we done? 802. 802 wasn't to be, sir, but was a good strategy nonetheless at 802,000. At 802 the bid. At 802,000, so 800 was your limit, sir. At 800,000, fair enough. At 800 the bid. At 802,000, sorry, 802. I meant to say at 802,000, fairly been offered. Bid there, back against your bid, sir. But the keys are there at the moment. At 802 the bid. Bids here, keys are here. We're selling 802,000. Once at 802, all done. Twice at 802, done and finished. Third, final call. $802,000 the bid, all done.
803.
And I had a feeling that you were going to be back. I thought it at 803,000. You were just too confident for my liking, sir. At 805. Will you be back now though at 805,000? At 805 and the bid's there at 805. At 805,000, fairly been offered the quick retort. Now momentum shifted here. At 805 the bid. At 805,000, fairly been offered now. 805 the bid. We're on the market. We sell. First call at 805. Done. Second call at 805,000, done and finished. Third, final call at 805, all done, all finished, all silent and out. We're done here. So you're definitely done now?
All right, 806.
806 now at 806,000 the bid. At 806 now. How about 10? At 806,000, fairly been offered now. 806 the bid. At 806,000, fairly been offered. 806 the bid. Bids there, keys are there. We sell once. 808 at 808 now. At 810 now. Quick bang back in at 810,000. Keys back over here at 810 the bid. At 810,000, fairly been offered now. At 810,000. At 810 the bid. Bids there. Keys are there. We sell 810 the bid. First call at 810,000. All done. Second call 810 the bid. Done. Finished. 811 now at 811,000. At 811,000. I had something for 711, but I don't for 811. At 811,000, at 811, at 811,000, bid there, keys are there, back against you at 811 the bid, at 811,000, first call at 811, all done, second call, 811 the bid, done, finished, hands in pockets, sir, you searching for some change to take me to 812, at 811,000, third, final call, 811 the bid, all done, all finished, silent and out, at $811,000 the bid. Are we absolutely done now, sir? I can't get a reader. Can you show me your eyes and tell me you're done and then I'll sell? Definitely done?
That's it. I think so, yeah.
You don't want to try 812 or 815, even better? Last chance, need to know.
Already passed.
Definitely done. Thank you very much for your spirited bidding here today. At 812,000, bids here, keys are here. Everyone else tells me they're out. At $812,000, it's 11, isn't it? 11. At 811,000, I preempted your bid, sir. I'm sure it's still coming. At 811,000, first call at 811, all done. Second call at 811,000, done and finished. Third, final call, 811, the bid, all done, all finished, all silent and out. We definitely done, sir? Thank you very much for your bidding once more. We are selling, selling, selling. Sold. Congratulations and well bid. Please join us in congratulating our purchasers and our vendors here today. You've just witnessed another successful Harcourts Rata & Co auction. Have a great weekend.